All right, welcome back to the fourth episode of the Worst Is Yet to Come podcast. We're joined with our first guest. Thanks for coming on,
Thanks for
Bruce.
having me, man. Yeah,
How do you pronounce the last name? Because I know a little bit of French, but is it French like Moncour?
it, it's actually Scottish, so it's like
Oh, is it?
Moncur.
Oh,
Yeah, so
oh,
but
okay.
they can trace it back to the Normans. So at one
Okay.
point, some Vikings came over to Scotland and became the Moncur clan.
Moncour. Okay, perfect. All
Yeah.
right. Well, thank you for coming on the show and welcome, Bruce Moncour. So
Thanks for
let's
having me.
hell yeah, man. So let's start off with just tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got involved with Valour and Presence of the Enemy.
Yeah, well, I joined the military in 2001. Actually, I finished basic training a little bit before September 11th finished or happened. So like 19 days before I graduated basic training. In the reserves. I was still in high school, so I remember being in grade 12 and 9/11 happened and being like, "Oh man, I'm in the army. Like this actually I might have to go, and fight here." And I'm like, walking to English class. So I did 10 years in the military. I did a tour in 2006 where I fought in Operation Medusa. I was shot by an A-10 Warthog in a friendly fire incident, and I had 5% of my brain removed. I had to relearn how to read, write, walk, talk, and my injuries were so extensive that I had to release from the military and retire. But yeah, like my platoon of 40 was reduced to 5 in 2 days of fighting. So it was quite an extensive, and it was the biggest NATO battle ever to ever happen. So kind of kind of neat to be part of history. Not so neat to get so injured and lose, bits of brain and have to do a lot of rehabilitation. And then, obviously, then you can't do the work that I'd wanted to do. I wanted to be a career soldier, so I retired, and then part of my rehabilitation was see if I still had the capacity to learn. And history was only the only real subject I really had any interest in school. So I thought, well, that might be the easiest way to see if I can still learn in terms of something that I enjoy. And I got a degree in I got a Bachelor of Education with honors in history, and I got um, a minors in political science and ancient civilizations. And then I started advocating for pensions for veterans, and eventually that advocacy led me to Ottawa to work closely with the governments at the time and today, trying to better the treatment of veterans and stuff like that. And then COVID happens, and I am trying to pitch a TV show about Grover Cleveland, the president from the
Oh,
1880s. And because he was like a dirty dog, like he basically had a scandal before the 1884 election where he like was came out that he had raped a woman, impregnated her, stole the child, gave the child up to for adoption, and had her committed in a insane asylum. And this all came out during the 1884 election, and he still won.
wow.
So
Jesus.
Didn't
it's
even know.
crazy.
Was he the one that got stuck in the bathtub of the White House?
No, no, I think that's
Okay.
Taft. You're thinking
Oh,
Taft.
okay,
He's the
okay,
one.
okay,
He's the one that had two non-consecutive terms, and
okay.
so he lost. He got the highest vote count in all three elections that he ran. So he won, lost to Benjamin Harrison, won again. The other thing that happened was I don't know if he was the one driving, but he drove. I think he drove a carriage that killed his best friend, and he became the executor of his will, and then took care of his best friend's daughter. And when she turned 21, he married her, and he was like
Oh,
basically her father, surrogate father for all these years. And then at age 21, when she turned 21, or yeah, she he married her in the White House.
oh
So
wow.
yeah,
That's
God.
yeah.
I didn't know any of
Another
that.
crazy story is he had cancer in his mouth and had surgery, and a reporter caught wind of it and like reported it, put it in the newspapers, and he destroyed this reporter's life. Like, basically said it's not true. This guy is lying. Basically is slandering me, and this reporter never worked again. He was just completely blackballed by, and reported the truth. And kind of like that whole mentality that presidents had to be strong
Mm.
men, couldn't be seen as weak. That's why they agreed not to take pictures of FDR in his wheelchair and stuff like that. So quite a it's crazy. There's this guy's, and the whole premise of the show was it's so long ago, but yet some things just never change. Obviously, you could draw so many parallels to Trump and some of this and others of today that it was like almost insane just how long ago it was, 1880s to
Yeah.
today, that you could relate to it. And it's kind of like the whole premise of the show was basically that, it doesn't matter what era it is, things never change. Like, it
Yeah.
was
Like,
just
it's
so I couldn't get anybody to pay one iota of attention to this
mm,
this script I wrote, and somebody suggested to me, why don't you write some Canadian content and get yourself a little known in Canada? And I'm literally just like racking my brains about what I could do. And I'm like, I can even tell you, I was like washing my hair, like putting my hands through my hair, and it just hit me like a ton of bricks.
it's where all the
I was
good
like,
ideas are in the shower.
right?
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
was like, dude, I got to do a story about how Canadians never got a VC in Afghanistan, identify 10 of the best stories, and then just do 10 crazy war stories about these guys, and we're off to the races. So I literally, like, with soap still in my hair, I call my friend, I call my buddy David Mack, and I'm like, dude, what do you think? He's like, this is money, dude. And I was like, well, what do we do? And he's like, I don't know. So like we're basically at like square one. So I ended up calling General Hillier and asking him, I'm like, dude, General, what do you
Yeah.
think? And he's like, I love it. I was like, well, would you host? And he's like, and immediately said yes. And I was like, holy shit, I got General Hillier as the host. I've got this great idea where it's basically just talking about 10 awesome war stories. And the premise would be that, maybe one of these guys should get the VC based on, what we've presented. And then, so a friend of mine that works at McLean's suggested I reach out to Mick Zosky, who's kind of like Canadian royalty. His dad was a CBC uh, uh, reporter for years. He was actually voted when they had that CBC Greatest Canadian. He was voted
Oh yeah.
15th. He was voted 15th Greatest Canadian, and his great grandfather was Kazimir Zosky, who formed the Queen's Own Rangers, and was
Oh
very
yeah. Okay.
very instrumental in the developing Toronto and stuff like that. It's like very, like, he was made a knight, by the
Mm.
Queen of Victoria, so he was knighted. So yeah, very very affluent family. He was the official videographer of the Liberals, actually, for Paul like the first ever of, when it's like, oh, we need to start making videos, and like, in the
Ah,
90s and
yeah,
stuff.
yeah.
He was like the first ever in that position. And so I called him. He's like, I love the idea. Let's talk to my friend Gordon Henderson of 90th Parallel Productions. They're the ones that did the Crazy Eights documentary, and some other. They just did the Inconvenient Indian that, obviously had a little bit of a controversy with Michelle Latimer lying about her status as in being indigenous and things like that. But overall, a well-respected production company that's got 30 years of, stuff like that. And then we started pitching. We made a treatment and we pitched CBC, Global, everything like that, and we got turned down by everybody. Like, straight up, everyone's like, "No, we're not interested." And we thought, well, perhaps we would start social media pages, and we could, attract a bunch of people, and they would love it, and they would say, hey, let's do this. And one of the other things that especially the reason that they turned us down was that our treatment wasn't BIPOC. For American listeners, I think that it's a Black Indigenous people of color, so they wanted it more like that. So that kind of gets important later on down in the story. So anyway, we formed this. this documentary. We do all this stuff, and we get rejected, and we start this Facebook page, Instagram page, Twitter, and we all the social medias, and it just starts exploding. Like, just we start getting like people like 500,000 million hits a month. We're attracting thousands of people. I remember like thinking like, because they put a limit on your Facebook friends that you can only have 5,000
Mm.
friends. I remember
Yeah, yeah.
thinking like, oh, if my page can get past 5,000, how cool would that be? And then it actually did. And I was like, this is growing. This is and none of it mattered. None of it. It was just basically a fool's errand almost. But it did show us that we were onto something within the military community. And maybe if we weren't going to do a documentary, well, why don't we start a non for profit? And our goal was like, getting books out there, getting podcast. We do a podcast, Shots with Soldiers, and we do a few other things that we try to do that, kind of like educates Canadians about these forgotten heroes and these forgotten stories of incredible bravery and things like that. And so we did this. We started doing this. We formed our non for profit, and almost right off the bat, Jess La Rochelle's stuff was just like was going viral. Like, it was like anything we did about Jess would just
Yeah.
explode. And we hadn't reached contact. I was trying to reach him. His family is, I mean, were very private, and they wanted to keep their privacy. So it took me a while before finally his brother reached out to us and like, wow, thanks for doing all this. It's great. We love what you're doing. And just so you know, Jess is sick, and he's very sick, and he might die. And so this is 3 years ago, roughly. And we message him and be like, oh my God. And so we said, okay, we need to move this along. So we made an announcement that's three Septembers ago, saying, look, we are looking for an independent body review of some Canadian soldiers, starting with Jess La Rochelle, where we want their service that you have maybe have question marks as to whether or not they are properly recognized. And we wanted to start with Jess because of his health concerns. And we did a piece with the CBC, and then within the last 3 years, we've had like 70 to like 80 news articles, and
Yeah.
we mobilized hundreds of thousands of people, and it's been a really crazy grassroots thing. And yeah, actually, just today I had a meeting with. This is actually like nobody knows this, but I had a meeting with the Veterans Affairs Minister today for about an hour, the new Veterans Affairs Minister, and we talked extensively about this review that we'd like, and it was a very positive meeting. It was a very, very positive. And she is, she'd worked with I don't know, my wife is actually a member of Parliament herself, here locally in Thompson, Manitoba, where I live, and work very extensively with my wife on the official languages profile, and she's been moved to Veterans Affairs. So I kind of did have like a bit of an in that sense because they know each other, and the meeting went great. So the overall, our goal is to get an independent body review of not just Jess. I mentioned earlier about there was a bunch of soldiers that uh, we identified because of
Yeah,
the
yeah.
BIPOC situation, and a lot of them are Black, Indigenous, Jewish, females. We've identified about 34 soldiers so far, and some of them you're just like, if he's not Black, if he's not Indigenous, he's got to get this recognition. And I will say this: we're not inventing the wheel here. In fact, the Americans have done this. They're on their second review now. The first they started in 2002 under George W. Bush, and it was for Hispanic and Jewish soldiers from World War II, Korea, and Vietnam. And in that review, they identified 21 soldiers that they gave that fell between the cracks, or or weren't properly recognized due to their ethnicity or creed, and they rectified those in 2012 under Obama. And then just recently in 2020, under Joe Biden, they started a 5-year review of all Black and Indigenous soldiers from those three wars. And from my research, that's about 2.77 million um, uh, people, soldiers,
Yeah.
that they're going to do a review. So, like I said, the Americans have already done this. We're just basically saying, look, let's take the American template and try to expand this. The Australians have done this once with a Seaman Sheehan, 18-year-old, and that went down. Incredible story. That I mean, yeah, 78 years later, they just did it in 2020, I believe, as well. So they just
Oh
did
wow.
it as well. So there's other two countries, two of our closest allies, that have a history of doing this and doing the and going back and rectifying that. So our argument is like if they can do it, I don't think it should ever be too late. One of the biggest, I guess, things that kind of comes against us is in 1953, King George VI said that after 5 years, 5 years after the action, you can't do anything. It can't be changed. It can't do anything. So a lot of people have tried to say, well, that's the precedent.
Yeah.
But I mean, okay, he made this rule. There's nothing saying we can't change it. So
Yeah, actually, I have the actual Legion magazine. My dad's a member of Legion. He was in the RCMP. So I have an article from the May and June edition talking about why aren't we, bestowing the Victoria Cross on someone? And they're saying it's getting really political. And they talk about, like you said, King George, 1950, saying there's the limit. So, like, what things are holding this back right now? Is it political? Is it they don't want to look back? Because I know the Canadian military, we're not really publicly, we don't really, take care of our members like the Americans do. They're very good at appreciating their members, starting to take care of them better. But in Canada, we don't really do that.
so I think there's a bunch of reasons, and it's not it's kind of uh they come together so that it creates a perfect storm almost. So one of the big reasons is they don't want to lose control of it. They want to keep absolute control over this. The other reason they don't want to be questioned about their decisions either, right? So it's kind of like that alpha male mentality where it's like
Yeah.
I didn't make a mistake, and even if I did, I'm not going to admit it. Um, the other thing is that some people, um, bureaucrats don't like change. The
Oh yeah.
bureaucracy of so they don't want to change it. They don't want to set a precedent, and they don't want to. So again, if you give Jess the VC, then you're gonna have to review a bunch of other people. And so now the question is, are we opening a can of worms just to try to put them back into a bigger can? Like it's and once you've opened Pandora's box, there's no
Yeah.
I know for the fact that I had a meeting with the CDS, and he said that the British CDS like basically said, "Don't do this because we don't want to do this." And so
Uh,
it's a sense of that definitely the liberal government, the government of the day, is definitely willing to listen to its military on this and are standing by them and thinking that it's fine when almost everybody else is for this. Like I can't tell you, like, to have the veteran community united on this is unheard of. Like we don't agree on anything,
yeah, like
and they
across
never
the
do.
board, you have
Yeah,
everyone agreeing.
to have
Yeah. Okay.
everyone agree is unheard of. And so yeah, and the fact of the matter is that the liberals just refuse to even take having a meeting with the minister today was like my first in 3 years of doing this, my first actual face to face with a minister, and that they don't do that. Like Anita Anand ignored 5 requests from us for a meeting. Uh, I never even got to talk to Lawrence Macaulay. So this is like a whole new. The fact that she met with us is like a whole new thing for us. And the fact is like when we did the petition that E3636, we got over 14,000 signatures, which is big for a petition. Like you only need 500 for them to address the petition. Well,
That's how I heard about you guys. Was I signed that one because
yeah,
I started seeing it pop up on social media and I started researching and looking into it and I was like, why isn't this like going forward? Like I said, the British, they've awarded a Victoria Cross to members from
yeah,
Afghanistan. I think the
yeah,
Australians have too.
yeah, yeah.
So why
New
why
Zealand,
haven't we?
New Zealand as well.
Yeah.
And so we got all those signatures, and it wasn't even we addressed it to the defense minister. she didn't even address it. It was this guy Brian May, but he doesn't spell it like the guitarist from Queen. He
Oh,
spells it differently. And then uh it was 280 words, and it doesn't even mention Jess La Rochelle. In fact, in the 3 years that we've started this campaign, they hadn't publicly said his name until the new Veterans Affairs Minister wrote what she did about Jess's passing. So when he was
okay.
alive, they never actually. In fact, one time my wife was questioning Lawrence Macaulay, the previous Veterans Affairs Minister, at the ACFA committee, which is about veterans. I can't remember what the acronym stands for, but it's like essentially the Veterans Affairs Committee. And so she was able to ask him questions at the committee, and his office asked us for the questions that were going to be put towards him, and we gave him the questions so he could prepare. And they messaged, like, Veterans Affairs messaged me 3-4 times that day. That was the most they've ever messaged me, and they haven't messaged me since.
Oh,
Like, and I gave, in good faith, I gave them, and then he couldn't even be bothered to remember Jess's name. He just said the sound that the letter L makes. So
wow.
it was, it was not cool. I can say that, but I mean, here we are. Like, it is what it is. Um, we won't stop fighting. If you can, if you, I don't know if you saw that movie on Netflix about the soldier there that from Vietnam. Samuel L. Jackson's in the movie. Sebastian Stan. I think some was it William Hurd. I don't know. So, anyways, there's a few big names in this movie, and it's about this this helicopter pilot, or he was basically extracting injured soldiers, and they all said like this guy should have got the Medal of Honor, and they didn't give it to him, and they fought for 38 years to get this guy properly recognized. Pretty cool movie. Strongly
Okay.
suggest it. I apologize for not having the name. If you can put it in
It
the link or
it's
something like
called
that.
It's called The Last Full Measure.
Yes, The Last Full Measure.
Oh, okay. I'll have to check
And
that out.
that's how long I'm going to keep. I'm going to do this. If like governments come and go.
Yeah.
We do have the conservatives have said to us that if they form the next government, that they will do this. They won't even put
Okay.
it to like make a bill or anything. They're just going to do
Oh,
it.
okay. That's
So
hopeful. That's good.
yeah, I mean, but at the same time, you know,
You also
sometimes
want all parties to agree, not just one. If they win, you know what I'm saying? Like
for
you want
sure,
everyone.
I would definitely like it in writing, and I would definitely like to, I'll believe it when I see it.
Yeah.
I've been given so many promises with veteran stuff that, until I see results, I'm not going to get too excited. But I mean, the fact that they have committed, I'm going to try to get them to put it on their platform when for the next election, just to make sure that it's in writing.
Yeah.
At the debates, I'm going to try to get a question put towards the leaders. I have a pretty good connection with some of the people at CBC and CTV. So, in one of the debates, I think I could possibly get a question put towards them at the debate. So, I think that would be that's important, and it's the legacy. It's the fact that Jess La Rochelle was kind of becoming forgotten 3-4 years ago, and I find that to be a damn shame. Like what he did, it's almost like a movie. And if you permit me to tell
Yeah.
your
Yeah. Please,
listeners,
please, because I'm like I said, a lot of people like listening. Actually, a lot of our listening base is like Canadians, so I'm sure most of them don't even know what we're talking about or what he did. So it'd be great to get the story out so people can fully get behind you guys.
so
Yeah.
on October 14th, 2006, Jess La Rochelle's platoon moved to this position called Strong Point Center. And on their way, one of their platoons hit a landmine or an IED. I can't remember which. Nobody was injured, but it took basically a section out of the platoon. So they showed up shorthanded. And when they got there, they were told, "Look, we know there's an attack coming. It's imminent. And we need a volunteer to man the observation post." And Jess put his hand up. Now that's important because that's not part of his citation, And that's not part of, and nobody knows that. That's new information that came out from our research and development. So just keep in mind through all of this that Jess volunteered. Now, he goes to this observation post, and within 15 minutes, the attack happens. And a rocket propelled grenade hits his position and knocks him unconscious. Not only knocks him unconscious, but detaches a retina, breaks vertebrae in his neck and his back, and gives him a severe concussion. So he is knocked unconscious. When he comes to, 2 of his section are dead, 7 are wounded, and the Taliban are about to overrun their position. And he is the only thing standing in the way of that. 2 of the labs that are there have stoppages, so they can't fire. And he crawls to his C6 machine gun and begins firing. And basically is putting down the only sustained fire at that time. And in that time, he becomes low on machine gun ammunition, and he sees a pile of M72 rocket launchers, single shot rocket launchers, and he begins taking the rubber stoppers off of them and extending them and firing them. Now, to those that don't know, firing a rocket has a bit of a kick, as you can imagine. Not only that, but you have to check your backblast area. You can't fire that rocket with anything behind you because it could hurt you. So now with a broken neck and a broken back, I guarantee you he wasn't looking behind him to see if everything was okay. He was firing this rocket. And to fire that rocket, he would have had to have exposed himself, and at which point would have made a great target for the Taliban. And once he fired that rocket, now he just has a worthless metal tube. And because he was hit by a rocket, if any of those metal tubes had been bent, they would have exploded in his hands. But he ignored that and fired 15 of these fucking rockets at the Taliban and single-handedly repelled an attack of 20 to 40 bloodthirsty Taliban soldiers. At which point, they came to his position, nobody believing that he could possibly have lived through that rocket-propelled grenade. He popped his head up and said, "Yeah, I'm good." He manned that observation post with another soldier for an additional 12 hours. Keep in mind that he has a broken neck, a broken back, and a detached retina. He then was relieved the next morning to do the ramp ceremony for the 2 soldiers that were killed, Private Blake Williamson and Sergeant Darcy Tedford. And he carried the casket of Blake Williamson onto the plane with a broken back and a broken neck. And once he put down his comrade in his flag-draped coffin, he then said, "I think I need to get some help." At which point they realized, yeah, you have a broken neck and a broken back. Now, the criteria of a Victoria Cross is as such. It comes in 4 parts, really. Did you exhibit an incredible display of bravery, valor in the presence of the enemy? Yes. I mean, that's a check mark.
Yeah, check. Check. Yeah.
Did you get injured or killed? Check. Did you save lives? Check.
Yeah.
Did you change the course of a battle? Check. He checks every single box. The problem I find, and a historian I know, Dr. David O'Keefe, he said it's like, basically it's, we're not giving the VC unless we can find somebody better than Wayne Gretzky.
Oh.
How are you going to do that? It's not. And I'm sorry, but what Jess LaRochelle did that, like, you can find comparable Victoria Crosses in other countries, in past wars for Canadians, that he is, without a doubt, a Victoria Cross worthy. And there's nothing that anybody could ever do. They could bring, whatever evidence or whatever. There's nothing. Even if they do the review and they decide he doesn't get it, I'm going to see I'm not going to agree with whatever the findings are unless it's yes, he deserved it. So that's what we're fighting for. That's what we're fighting for, is the fact that this young man explained. I mean, if he was American, there would be a movie about him. For Christ's sake, he would have got the Medal of Honor. He would have got the VC in another country.
I was about to say the story reminds me of the movie that I've seen. Andrew, I think you've seen it too. It's The Outpost about the like outpost like the I forget what they're called, like the Ford.
I think it was Cop Keating in
Yeah,
Afghanistan.
yeah. It and they got attacked by like over 100 like Taliban, I think it was, and
Yeah.
like two of the guys ended up like 20 Americans got wounded, like eight got killed, like two American soldiers that were just running back and forth, kicking ass, keeping, covering fire down and everything, dragging dudes out of, line of fire and everything. They two guys from that got the Medal of Honor.
Yeah.
And like it that the story that you just told about just reminds me of that a lot.
100%. There was a Gurkha, I think, that got. I think it was in Iraq, but he did almost a
Yeah.
similar. Like,
It was holding down an
yeah,
attack, right, with machine
yeah,
gun, and then he ran out of ammo and he pulled out his kukri on them.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Like it's a similar, and he got the VC from the Brits. So, yeah. I mean, it's a shame that we've mobilized so much, and that they just won't listen. And today was the first day where I actually felt like I was listened to. So that's a positive, at least.
Yeah.
Things are positive. And thousands and hundreds of thousands of Canadians now like knew who Jess was, and when he passed away, on the 30th, just a few couple days, last week, it wasn't like, oh, it's sad that this guy died. It's like, oh, I know who he is. I know what he did. This is, they felt a connection to this young man, and people are doing, they didn't have a funeral. They wanted people that just have campfires around their house, and just because Jess loved sitting around the campfire. So hundreds, if not thousands, of Canadians had campfires in his honor. So it was good. It was, you get choked up, and I mean, he was such an unassuming, quiet guy. I remember meeting him in the battalion lines and just being like, I would never have guessed he would have been he would have done what he did, just by the way he's just so, he wasn't, you get the war movies and you get the guy, that Hollywood version of, the action star, and here this guy was the absolute opposite of that.
Just like humble and professional.
Yeah. Not and baby faced, piercing blue eyes.
Yeah.
Like you couldn't make a guy that looked younger. I don't even know if he needed to shave yet when I met him. And like, it's just I honestly, and I got to talk to him a bit more and catch up with him a bit, and I honestly thought he was turning a corner, and yeah, it's just it hit me as like a ton of bricks when he passed, but it was and you know what? It's kind of, I don't know, put another hockey analogy into it. There was a guy that got into he's a coach. I think he coached for New Jersey, Pat Burns, and he got a cup. I think he coached for got a couple cups with New Jersey, and he didn't get to the Hall of Fame till he died. After he died, and it was a posthumous Hall of Fame induction, and you're just like, man, you knew he was sick. You knew it. You know what I mean? Why didn't? There's a lost opportunity.
Extra mile to get it while he was still alive.
And we tried trust me, dude. I put thousands of hours into this. I've put thousands of hours into this, and it's just been, sometimes one setback after another. Then there'd be positives and stuff, but the end results has never been this independent body review. So we're gonna keep fighting. We're keep doing. We've started. If I can plug our.
Plug everything all you want, and we're gonna post your Facebook, your Instagram.
Okay.
I know you guys are selling T-shirts. I want to get all that because I want everyone to support you guys. Yeah.
And so the T-shirts are gonna go towards making an official website, and we're gonna start trying to put some money away so that we can start making some documentaries. Maybe not like official documentaries, but maybe some that we can post on YouTube and stuff like that. You
need to make like a new Heritage Minute kind of thing for him, because those
my God,
those were pretty popular when I was a kid on TV.
Yeah, no, for sure. We've we have the only, on our YouTube page, we have the only first-hand account. General Hillier did an interview with him, and that's the only time Jess publicly talked about what happened that day. So we have it's about a 30-minute listen if anybody wants to go onto our YouTube page, and that's it. There's you're never gonna. We're talking because it was a 3-hour interview and we edited it down to 30 minutes. I think we're gonna give the full 3 hours to the War Museum to preserve it for history. So
that'd be great. Yeah.
Yeah. We don't want to profit off it or say no this is ours or copyright it. We think it belongs with history.
Well, it's really important to share these stories, especially for future generations of Canadians.
Yeah, for sure. So, and so we've been, and I mean, there's 34 other guys that we've been. Let me tell you about a couple of the other guys. So, Francis Peggy-Magabo, are you familiar with him?
I'm Ojibwe. I'm Ojibwe, so I'm familiar with him. Yeah.
Okay, so Indigenous sniper, joined right at the beginning, 1914, which is rare because they weren't allowing Indigenous people to join until 1915. And so he joins up. He gets through one of the recruiting offices, and he goes. And in 4 years, he kills 378 Germans and captures another 300. So essentially takes almost 700 Germans out, which is a battalion. And for all that, he gets the third highest medal 3 times. And so, which is incredible. And I think he's one of 39 that's ever happened to have the third highest medal 3 times. But it's not the Victoria Cross.
No.
It's great. It's great to get. I mean, it's super honor to get the third highest medal. Super honor to get the second highest medal. But 1,563 men have only gotten the Victoria Cross, and that's since 1854. So that means there's tens of millions of soldiers that have fought. You literally have better odds of winning the lottery than getting a Victoria Cross. And in fact, you have a 90% chance of dying when you get the Victoria Cross, of getting the Victoria Cross and being dead. So the numbers are staggering. So Francis Peggy-Magabo gets this third highest medal, and he comes back to Canada, and everybody in the First World War got 40 acres of land from the government, and he puts in for these 40 acres of land, and his Indian agent rejects his application. A man that didn't even serve in the fucking war. And so then he decides, well, okay, I've been gassed twice. My lungs are fucked. He can't sleep in a bed. He has to sleep in a chair, upright, because his lungs fill with fluid. So he asks for a pension. It takes him 13 years to get this pension. And at which point, once he does get this pension, he then has to prove he's not spending that pension frivolously. So he ends up becoming the first national chief of the United Indian, back then it was the Indian Association of Canada. I can't remember the actual acronym, my apologies. And so he becomes the first chief. He was one of the last holdouts to cut his long hair, because in the 40s they had a ruling that Indigenous men had to cut their hair. And the other aspect of this was he died, sadly, in 1952, 8 years before he could cast a ballot in a federal election. And so, based on the way he was treated after he came home, it stands to reason that he was potentially treated that way, or he most definitely treated that way when he was a soldier. And when he did, just to put that in perspective, the kill count for Rambo in the fictitious movies by Sylvester Stallone is 493, and Peggy almost doubles Rambo's numbers in 4 years. Rambo did it from Vietnam all the way to present day. So Peggy's numbers are just, 4 years, 700. He's over 100 a year, almost 200 a year, and which is insane. And But then you also got to think, well, a lot of people like say, well, it's more about a certain action. Well, then Billy Bishop, who has a airport named after him, who took down 78 German warplanes, the most of anybody in the Commonwealth forces. He got his Victoria Cross from a citation nobody witnessed. It was his own citation that he wrote, and then they
Oh,
came
really?
back.
Wow.
And then they came back and said, well, it was more about his body of work than this citation. So which is it? Is it, but Billy Bishop has white skin, so I guess.
Mm. Yeah.
Another one I'll tell you about is Frank Montour. So he married the great great granddaughter of Joseph Brant. And so his brother-in-law, the great great grandson of Joseph Brant, Cameron Brant, and him joined up, ironically enough, in the early stages of the war, 1914, just a few days after Peggy, I think 3 weeks. And they get to Ypres during the first gas attack, and Cameron is killed. Well, Frank also lives for the entire war and is promoted as an Indigenous man to captain, which is
Not really
fucking
heard of.
crazy, unheard of. It's like a unicorn, essentially. And he then is also actually recommended for the Victoria Cross, and nobody follows up on it. Well, there isn't even a government page dedicated to Frank Montour. A Canadian encyclopedia, no Veterans Affairs page, nothing. Talk about him. In fact, when they were trying to recruit in World War II, they bragged about him as trying to recruit him, but they got the wrong guy. They got him mixed up with another guy, a private, and it wasn't Captain Montour. He was a private mission from the ranks. But yeah, and there's other guy, George McLean, Indigenous guy, fought in the Boer War, joins up at 41, goes to Vimy Ridge, fighting in Vimy Ridge, goes over the top, saves the life of his commanding officer, and kills 17 soldiers before he is injured. Put back, his war is done, 41 years old. 4 people got VCs that day. He got the second highest medal. The only difference between what he did, and in my opinion, and the 4 men that served is the color of his skin. So the question has to be begged. Obviously, the social biases of the day stood in the way of these men and women being properly recognized. Another one from World War II, a French guy, Leo Major. They call him the French Rambo.
Yeah.
He gets it twice? He gets the second highest medal twice in 2 different wars. How do you not give this guy the VC? Ernest Poole in Korea, we put him up for the VC, and the British downgraded him. And I'm sorry, now we have our own VC, and if we put somebody up, the country of Canada puts somebody up, then we should do right. There's another guy, Jeremiah Jones. He lied about his age. He was 66, and he was 6'6", and he took a couple of machine guns, and he was put up for a medal. He served with the RCR, and they refused to give it to him because he was black. And then they had this campaign back in 2010 that properly recognized him, and they gave him a civilian medal that wasn't even instituted until the 1980s. That's come on, man. Come on. But
so is this the can of worms the government's scared of opening, you think?
Yeah, because essentially it's everybody's going to say, well, my grandfather, he did this, and how much it's going to cost to research all these people. But I mean, at the same time, we're going to learn a whole lot of stuff about a whole lot of cool people, and we're potentially going to be given. We've had the Victoria Cross for 30 years now, our own, and we've never given it out. And I don't know what we're so scared of or what we're waiting for. And again, if it's if we're trying to find somebody that's better than Wayne Gretzky, it's not going to happen.
No.
So, I mean, there's a lot of elements. Some people said, well, he was a private. If he was an officer, he would have got it. Other people said that, the people that were in charge of giving out medals at the time had never been in combat, so they didn't really know, And then other people said, well, Jeff set the bar so high for the second highest medal that nobody could that surpassed him, so they couldn't give anyone the VC. I don't know. It's all speculatory. The other thing too is that the honors and awards, it takes 18 months for somebody to get that second highest medal, but 2 or 3 months to get an MMM for throwing a military medal of merit for throwing a mess dinner where the bar doesn't run dry. The colonels and everyone else seem to be able to get their medals like lickly split and have no problem getting these MMMs and whatever else there are, these lesser medals, and they can give themselves a nice rack. They don't have any problem doing it within the higher ups, the officer classes. So there's a lot of issues in the Canadian military. In particular, it's falling apart, frankly, and this is just one more thing that's happening. But I'm reminded of a quote, and it's just this would help morale, because morale right now is so dead. But if you were to start, doing right by some of the guys, Napoleon said, "Give me enough brass and ribbon, and I'll win you the war." Like it's like it's it's just the fact of the matter is that medals mean so much to the guys, and these medals wouldn't they're already cast. There's 10 of them at the mint.
Oh, are they? They've already made them?
Already made it. They've already made. They're already ready. It's all good to go. So, and now, Jess passes away. It's just another element to this that's just sad. It's just sad and pathetic. And there's a disconnect between the leadership and the troops. And it's been bad for years, but it's just getting further and further. And that's the big reason for the retention problem. It's just like there's a lot of emperors with no clothes on, and it's hard to work for people like that and put your boots together and salute them if they're going to treat people like this. And the respect that you need to have for one another, and especially just in life in general, and the fact of the matter is like they've stripped down our pensions, so like that if you get injured or hurt, you're destitute. Like you're not going to be taken care of.
Wasn't it like a lump sum initially they were giving?
Still is.
Yeah,
it's
it was
okay.
Sum. But you're not getting. So I have a buddy in the States who got injured in Afghanistan, and he's getting a monthly tax-free pension for the rest of his life.
Yeah, we used to have that until 2006, and then they realized, oh well, these guys are we're going to cost a lot more money. So, and I'll even go further. So, in 2002, we went to Afghanistan, and we were in Kandahar initially, and then we went to Kabul. And then in 2003, 2004, the United States invaded Iraq. Now, the mentality was that, hey, they made their coalition of the willing, but we didn't join it. We weren't part of that group that invaded Iraq. And it was probably one of the then Prime Minister John Chrétien's most indelible legacies, was that he actually stood up to the Americans. Well, John Chrétien's gone, Paul Martin's in, and in 2005, the Americans under George W. Bush are like, look, like you guys aren't pulling your weight, and in response to that, we're not going to renew the softwood lumber. We're not going to end the beef ban, because we had, if you remember, that's the mad cow.
Yeah, mad cow. Yeah.
And we're not going to build these 2 pipelines for you. Right? We're not going to build these 2 pipelines. So this was going to greatly affect the Canadian economy, especially the softwood lumber deal, which is every 10 years. And so Paul Martin made a deal. Essentially, the Paul Martin government said, hey, look, we're not going to go into Iraq because, we have an election coming up. We have the sponsorship scandal, like anything else. Like, and they were cooked anyways. Yeah. But they're like, we can't. But how about we up our level of commitment in Kandahar, alleviating your troops there, so you can put them in Iraq. And a deal was struck. Now, also remember that Paul Martin is a shipping magnate, and he ships a whole lot of oil and beef and softwood lumber.
So he
So
profited off of.
still, those economies, it's Machiavellian. I'm not going to say, oh, that's terrible, because I mean that's the true nature of war.
Yeah.
That's what it's about. And so 158 Canadians, 2,100 injured, more 158 killed, more commit suicide. Yeah, that was the price. That was the butcher's bill, so that we could preserve those three trades. But then the Liberals turned around and slashed the pensions. So that's where it gets, good thing they wear red to cover up all that blood on their hands, because that was just, that's dirty politics right there. And then the Conservatives took over, and then they started recruiting in areas like where I'm from, Windsor, Ontario, with low unemployment. So obviously exploiting, the unemployed. And then they go turn around and shut down our Veterans Affairs office. So
Oh,
yeah,
really?
yeah,
Wow.
oh yeah. So yeah, they went recruiting knowing that, the heart, it was the unemployment capital of Canada, and then turned around and said, "Oh, well, by the way, we're going to shut this down too." So
So
yeah,
they shut down the local Veterans Affairs office in Windsor where you're at.
yeah, they shut it down. They ended up reopening it, but we had to fight like heck, actually. And in fact, I went probably what got me on the stage as being a really big advocate here in Canada for veterans' rights was I went to Ottawa for this this meeting with the union, the PSAC, and basically asked then Veterans Affairs Minister Julian Fantino to keep my office and the other 8 that they were shutting down around the country open, and he walked out on our meeting, and it was like actually Obama had a State of the Address that day, and it was actually a quite significant one. And within 5 minutes we like bumped Obama, and we were the top news story in Canada that
Wow.
night. And it was
Dude.
like it was all over, and it ended up destroying Julian Fantino's career. He lost re-election, was removed as the Veterans Affairs Minister. In fact, Harper was never known to be pressured to replace ministers. That was the only time that he replaced a minister. And from that point, I was essentially I've been pretty well known in my fight against the way people are treated, like the veterans are treated, um and then started Valour, and it's been so that was basically that just to answer your question, that meeting was very instrumental in me getting to where I was in terms of the veteran advocacy that I do.
So where are you at right now with the veteran advocacy?
Well, dude, so that Fantino thing happened in 2014.
Okay.
I've been at this for almost 10 years, and sometimes there's burnouts, man. Sometimes there's just like, sometimes I'm still run Valor in the presence of the enemy. Still working on that. I co-chair the Service Excellence uh, committee. It's an advisory group for the minister. And I still I write things. I get a few things published here and there. Um, and then I live here. I'm actually a teacher as well. So
Okay.
I went back and got my teaching degree, and I'm a teacher here in Thompson, Manitoba.
That's great. That's great. So you're really killing it right now.
Oh, dude, like, without like I
Do
have
you teach history? Did you say
uh
that?
no, I don't. I don't. I would love to. I was actually thinking about going to get my master's and doing a master's on this, the dollar stuff, and
Yeah.
then possibly even a PhD after that. I would love to do the
Oh yeah.
PhD on friendly fire, being that somebody is. I have an idea. I already have an idea that each chapter that I write would be a significant story about friendly fire. And in fact, Stonewall Jackson would be one of my chapters.
Yeah, our first
beginning of my
episode. Yeah.
Oh
chapters.
yeah.
So, so I honestly, my wife, like, she is like a rock, a major rock for me, and we have twin boys. They're 6, so yeah.
You're busy. You're busy.
Busy a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're going to grade 1, which is insane. I can't believe it. But yeah, I mean, her as an elected official, she's been an MP for 15 years. So she's, yeah, always, I did a lot of stay-at-home dad stuff when the kids were first, obviously twins. So yeah, that was crazy. And this, I mean, this came out of COVID, really. This, being stuck at home and just going insane. And eventually I was like, yeah, I want to do this. Valor in the Presence of the Enemy. And yeah, it kind of took on a life of its own. The original intention did not come to fruition, but in ways it's kind of better this way. In ways it's kind of like a one-off documentary or a non-for-profit that, will keep fighting, and it's been fun. It's been really fun. I've been able to connect with some really cool people and talk to some really cool people. Some really, like, Romeo Dallaire. I've been able to
really?
Lewis
Wow.
McKenzie. I've been able to reach out to a lot of really cool people and talk to a lot of really cool people, and you're seeing the fruits of your labor, although it's not hasn't come to fruition as to getting the review, but I think it's a matter of time. I think it really is. I mean, Aaron O'Toole, who I work with very closely and is actually a close friend of mine, he put forward a private members bill, or not a unanimous motion of consent in the Parliament, basically about this. And the whole premise was, dude, you gotta, like, you either everybody has to vote with it, and every party except for the Liberals voted for it, and they took a shit, like, they took a shit kicking.
Why?
To the point where
do they give a reason when they say no, or do they just say no? And
it was just, yeah, they just said no. In fact, they started heckling him when he was presenting it.
Really?
And it's like, yeah,
what
and they're
the
like,
fuck?
yeah. So in Canada, like the United States, you guys don't really heckle because it's kind of childish and bullshit. But in Britain and and Canada,
Get
we
rowdy.
Yeah,
Get rowdy.
I've seen the clips.
Yeah.
So, but he basically said, like, look, if you don't respect me, at least respect this soldier. And a lot of Liberals have gone on the record since then, being like, look, if this becomes a private members bill, we're not going to vote this down because it was, it was a really bad look. And yeah, but I mean, from that, we have the bill. Essentially, the bill's written. So Aaron O'Toole has already written it. It's already in place. I mean, like I said, it's as close to being done as with it just needs to get approved. And so we're hoping that, this new veteran, we're not optimistic, but maybe this new Veterans Affairs minister, she will, she's been known to be to work with all parties and to be very bipartisan. So we're hoping that this will be, and I think also the numbers for Trudeau are really not, like, it looks like the Conservatives are in majority territory right now. So I think this, like, for example, Aaron O'Toole replaced Fantino. That was like basically Harper trying to stem the bleeding and basically like putting people in there to, like, and I think this minister's might be that minister. If not her, maybe the next one would be like,
Yeah.
Okay, let's try to do a lot of things to make people happy because it's looking like we might lose our jobs. So we'll see.
That's one area I never understood, is that, yes, I understand, like, politics is a thing. You have ideas, someone has ideas that you don't agree with, that kind of thing. But it's like, this seems like if any issue should be bipartisan, it's like where there should be no politics. It's this. It should be, did this, did this person meet this criteria for this? Okay, then give it to them.
And the irony is that the Republicans and Democrats are completely exactly the way you say, bipartisan, and agree wholeheartedly on this, which is like, when have the Republicans and Democrat ever, agreed on the color of the sky,
ever,
let alone on something like this? And so, like, when you see, like, two very adversarial parties that, in a country that is very divided at right now, probably more divided than since like the 1860s, agree on something, and yet here we have, our own Canadian politicians can't agree on something that seems so simple. It can be frustrating. I'll say that. But at the same time, man, I love learning about these soldiers. Man, I love finding somebody new. Man, I
Yeah.
love it's fun to like really be like, holy shit, this is incredible. He's on the list or she's on the list, and it's been a fruitful exercise. And I you know what? Like I said, I'll be 70 years old and I'll still be fucking doing this. So it's exciting.
That and again, like, just speaking to the timeline of like how long this can take, we're saying like the United States is maybe a little bit better at being willing to be like, okay, yes, we recognize that this is above, above, you went above and beyond, that kind of thing. There's still,
United States is the standard. Yeah.
There's still obvious cases though, even in the United States, where it took a long time. The one I'm thinking specifically ever I wanted to mention is Master Sergeant John Chapman. I'm sure both of you have seen the video. The video of, it's like the first Medal of Honor ever recorded, as the video was called.
Yeah.
And it was during, I think it was it Takur Ghor? Is that what the battle's called? The battle.
I think it was in Korea.
No, it was in it was the War on Terror. It was in Afghanistan, like
Afghanistan. Okay.
2002, I think it was, maybe.
Okay.
They have it on video from like a UAV or something.
Yeah, it's like the Battle of Takur Ghor or something.
Right.
And so he was in the Air Force. He was actually like the combat controller, I think it's called. And he was going with, I think, Navy SEALs, and they had been attacked, and he went with the group that went back to get the bodies of the fallen men that they had actually left by accident.
Wow.
Just the confusion of everything. He went back, and like, it's on the video from this, like, I don't know if it's a C-130 or like a UAV or something, but you can see it, like, you can see him like on the video, like running up this mountain in like knee deep snow, like shooting at Taliban, like running uphill doing this.
Wow.
And you can see in this whole video, and like, so he was in the Air Force, so he was killed in that engagement.
Wow.
And he was awarded the Air Force Cross in, like after that, so like 03, 04. But in 2014, someone was like, hey, this guy should get the Medal of Honor. And it still took from 2014 until I believe it was 2018 when he was, posthumously awarded the Medal of Honor. And that was 16 years after he had passed away.
Well, it's been 16, 17 years since Jess's, what Jess did. Yeah, no, I know. But you know what? Was it, the one I was thinking of was, there was one that they just did for Korea, that Biden just did. Trump did a few. It goes back, I think, to Bill Clinton. He's one that really started like going back to Vietnam and going, and I believe Clinton gave Theodore Roosevelt the Medal of Honor. So,
oh really?
For his charge on San Juan, San Juan Hill. Which, to me, in my opinion, those Buffalo soldiers on the left flank are the ones that should be recognized, because they're the ones that actually took on the counteroffensive, the counteroffensive from the Spanish. They're the ones that basically saved the Rough Riders from being wiped out, and nobody talks about them. And that to me, that's a movie right there that should be. And I could almost picture it in a sense that you got this like, almost like this black man, in this, almost like a janitor, just like sweeping up, like, from the events of, Theodore Roosevelt being posthumously recognized for with his Medal of Honor, and then like, basically, saying, well, man, I wish my grandfather, and his grandfather being like, something along the lines of that, where it's just like, well, actually, let's tell the real story. which obviously,
Yeah.
history is written by the victors, and sometimes, and that's what we need to do. We need to go back and recognize.
Yeah, history is written by the victors, and sometimes the victors at the time are ignorant.
Exactly.
So,
Yeah.
it's like you're saying. It's like Teddy Roosevelt's ghost climbing over the dead bodies of Buffalo soldiers to get his Medal of Honor. It's like,
Yeah.
for anyone who doesn't know, the Buffalo soldiers were, they're all black soldiers from back in the 1800s and things,
Was segregated
early 1900s.
Segregated, yeah.
segregated regiments before Truman integrated in 52. After that, soldier was blinded in the South somewhere. The other thing you guys got to do is you got to have the guy, the curator of the Medal of Honor Museum. You guys got to track him down and get him on.
Yeah, we're looking for more guests. I mean, like I said, we're just starting the show, so
he's out. He's in. Have you ever been to Arlington, Texas? I don't know.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, he's there. That's where he is. So
the National Medal of Honor Museum.
Yeah.
They built it here. They're gonna open it next year, actually.
Yeah.
Oh,
he's fascinating, dude. And that guy knows. Oh my God, he's so smart, incredible. I listened to a couple podcasts that he's done now, and it's just like, wow. Yeah, man. Yeah. So we've just been, like I said, we started 3 years ago. We started our own podcast, it's Shots with Soul. So General Hillier will do like an episode, and then at the end we all do a shot, and kind of like in an ode to the old rum rations.
Okay.
Oh yeah.
And that's on the YouTube,
cool.
your guys' YouTube, right? So
Yeah,
we'll make sure to link that.
YouTube, and I think we're gonna do a special. We've already done an episode on Jess, but we're gonna do a special episode, I think, in the next coming month. So, yeah.
Awesome. Well, you know what? Thanks for coming on as our first guest. Really appreciate it, and thanks for everything you've done for Canadians and our country. Really appreciate that.
Dude, it was my pleasure. Thanks for having me on. And then once you send me the particulars and the links, I'll share it to our social media. And
I'm gonna post this everywhere, and it'll probably come out tomorrow. I think Harry will probably edit it tonight, and we'll release it, and I'll send everything to you, and we'll link everything.
Perfect. Is there anything else you guys needed, or?
That was pretty much it. It was
awesome,
great conversation, man. Really appreciate it.
I do the It's Always Sunny podcast.
I like that one.
Yeah.
Under the Influence podcast. I do.
I like that one too.
And I just downloaded yours, so you're in the mix. I can't wait to listen because I loved Stonewall Jack. And I've read so many books about him. So I'm excited to hear what your take on him and stuff like that. So. All right,
this is an interesting take. So, all right, thank you very much. Have a good night.
No worries.
And, I'll talk to you soon with all the information.
All right, bye now.